One unique feature about Scoreboard is that it can automatically grade pivot tables based on the pivot tables created by professors on the answer key. So in this current problem, we are making a pivot table for the year 2017 based on the Cleveland Guardians payroll. And we have already constructed this pivot table, so we have the age sorted here. We have the number of players in each of those age ranges, the average salary for each of the players in those ranges, and then the sum of the base salary over here for that age range as well. So this is the entire data set that we are looking at. And this is sort of what the professors have constructed that they want to have the students construct as well. One thing to note when making pivot tables is to always leave space to the right of the pivot table. This is because Scoreboard produces a model that I will show you in just a minute. But the pivot table that these students will construct will be to the right of that model, and then also to leave space below the pivot table. That way the students' work doesn't mess anything up or get rid of anything that might be in the cells below the pivot table. So now, once we have this exactly how we want it, we are going to run it through the Scoreboard program and then start constructing the pivot table. So this is the start file that Scoreboard generated. This is the student's view of the assignment. They see that they have a pivot table problem down here, and it's the only worksheet in this entire assignment. So this is what the student's view will look like. They will have the same instructions that is on the professor's answer key and also the same data. However, there is a new sort of model right here that the students will use to help construct their pivot table. So basically, the Scoreboard program generates an image of the pivot table that was on the professor's answer key so that students can't just copy paste the pivot table over. And the Scoreboard program also generates this prompt telling students exactly how to construct their pivot table. So all the students have to do is click on the data set that they're going to use, go over to Insert Pivot Table. This will take them to the pivot table generator. You want to use the location that is given by the program. So the student should always put the pivot table that they are generating in this pivot top corner cell. If they don't, the pivot table will not be able to be graded by Scoreboard. And then they hit OK. And they will receive this pop-up message. Basically, it's just saying that there's already data in this cell, which we can see is pivot top corner, and you hit yes, you do want to replace that data. So now the student can go ahead and start constructing their pivot table. What they need to do is basically use the prompt here to generate a pivot table based on this model. So what they will do is hit age, drag that into the rows, and then we see that the age is 21 to 25, 26 to 30, and so on. Group field starting at 21, ending at 36 like we have here, but instead by 1 we want to group them by 5, and that will give them that. As you can see, the students aren't earning points as of right now, but they will start to later. Also, one thing to note is that it is important to have the same like headings for each of these as the student goes. The next thing we need to do is we need the number of players. We want that as a value, and we see that they don't have, there isn't the right number of players, and that's because we haven't filtered by the year yet. So we're going to drag the year in right here. And we want to go right here and hit just 2017, like so. Then we want to click back into the pivot table, and we now have the same as the model. Then we're going to go base salary as a value. We don't want it as a sum. We want it as the average. So average of base salary. And then we also want it We want these in dollar form, like so, with one decimal place. And as you see, we are starting to earn some points over here. Now that these all match up, it's filtered properly, and these are starting to line up. The last thing we need to do is add the sum of the base salary. So we do base salary like so, but instead of sum, or instead of instead of this sum like being like this, we want to format it in the same way with 2 decimal places like so. We're going to refresh the worksheet, and now the student has 9 of their 9 possible points. So that is how you do pivot tables with Scoreboard. It is pretty easy as long as the students put the pivot table in the correct cell and the professors leave enough space below and to the right of the pivot table that they have generated in their original assignment.